to Marketing Without the Marketing. I'm your host, Michael Bosey. I'm very happy to have you here with me on this episode. Today, I want to get into the Google algorithm. We've been talking about how SEO is a part of any marketing program, any content strategy, and that it starts with people. But we got to address Google. Google is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And everything that we do with SEO has to satisfy Google. Google is the connection between the people and your content, the audience that you want to serve, and how you're going to serve them on your site. So we really do have to address that. Now, as I said from the very beginning, SEO is about two people connecting, right? That person who wants to learn, that person who can teach the learner, that's you. And SEO is about enlisting Google's help in making that connection. Now, when you think of it that way, you can stop thinking about it in the way that some people do, that it's all about the tricks and the hacks and somehow outsmarting Google's search algorithm. The fact that anyone thinks they can do this is, well, it's kind of laughable, right? I mean, I'm not always a fan of Google, but they have thousands of the best software engineers in the world working on this one facet of their services. And you think that you can outsmart that? I don't. I'd rather focus on the things that they want. And guess what? This is pretty lined up with the things that you want too. This is why SEO works so well, is that you and Google have, in effect, the same goals, which is to deliver really good content to people. You're the one with the content. Google is the one who's going to connect you. And when those two things work, that's really at the core of SEO. So let's look at what Google wants to see from your content. A brief overview of the key factors is you want to have a site that is, one, clearly providing good value to people. That's important to you and important to Google. You want people to be able to find your site in search, right? Get the search results and click through. So you really got to sell that click and make it worthwhile for the user, right? They're presented with a lot of options. Why you? You got to make your case. Google's looking for people who get referred to your site by others, right, via social or email or direct links or whatever. And, they're going to want to see that they come to your site and stay and click through to other content on your site. So in other words, that's a show to Google that they're getting something out of the experience, out of the stuff that you're providing, and that's awesome. Another sign for Google is that they share your post. They found it valuable enough to say, hey, I think someone else, one of my friends, family members, colleagues, someone would get some value out of this. I'm going to share it. And Google's watching that. And then once that happens, there, you've got another site inlet. You've got someone else coming to your site, and the cycle begins again. All these things are indicators of value. They're not the whole picture, of course, but Google has a set of factors that they can watch and measure all of this. And SEO is about one question. How can you put yourself in the best position for all of this? So let's take a look at that. Now, I will say up front that you don't need to be an SEO expert. You just need to get set up properly, understand some basic fundamentals, and make it a part of your workflow, which is the whole point of this entire lesson. But it helps to understand what's Google's intent. And I want to look at that, and I want you to bear with me on this because I feel like this will make a point that's really, really important about all of SEO. I want to go through some of Google's algorithm updates very briefly, just so that you understand what they're going for. At base, though, if we were to answer that question, we would say that Google is looking to deliver the most relevant information to people when they search. That's obvious, right? That keeps people coming back to Google. It makes people dependent on Google for search. All these things are creating a need that repeats over and over again. That's all good for Google because, hey, they're serving ads. They need people on their platform. But let's look at the basics of some of their algorithm updates because they really illuminate something really important. Now, Google is a moving target, and they've stayed one step ahead of all those who are trying to game the system. So they do very frequent updates, and they often have these named after animals. The first one that really significantly showed their intent that's carried through to today was an update called Google Panda in 2011, and it was one of their most significant spam fighting algorithms. It was saying all good content, no more cheap, crappy content. It's all going to be focused on good content. This right here was a shot across the bow to all of those content farms and people who were just producing stuff to get into Google search engine, just cheap, crappy content. And they've continued with this ever since. So that was February 2011. In April 2012, they released Penguin, which was aimed at catching sites spamming its search results, in particular those folks who are buying links, which is a horrible practice. Not only is it unethical, but now Google is watching that. They can see if your links are coming from quote-unquote bad neighborhoods. Next up was Hummingbird in September 2013, which introduced the concept of semantic search. So that means they were not just looking at keywords anymore, but could start to understand the intent of keywords. This was really a big, huge step forward in Google's search algorithm. Then in April 2015, Google's mobile-friendly update, also called Mobilegeddon, showed really that Google understood that people are searching more and more in mobile, and sites that weren't responsive or just loaded as a web page on mobile were not going to be favored in their search algorithm. In other words, web publishers had to get their act together and make sure that it was a good experience in the mobile environment. Then later that year, there was the Google RankBrain update, which was a part of their Hummingbird update. And this was, really again targeted at shallow content and poor user experience. And Google today calls this the third most important factor now. So again, this was Google showing that it has to be really good content and a really good user experience. Speaking of that, in January 2017, Google introduced the intrusive interstitials update, which was against everyone's most hated thing on the web, pop-ups. Google was now at war against pop-ups, and they said, listen, if you're using pop-ups, we're going to reduce your search ranking. And then in March 2017, there was Google's Fred update, which hit low-value content sites again that really are focused more on revenue and not users. So these, kind of icky, pushy sales pages, not these things that were trying to deliver search results. There's a bunch of others that happened through 2017 and 2018 as well. Their Brackets Core update, their zero result SERP test, their mobile first index rollout. All of these were throughout 2018. And, they've had a ton of sort of stealth, smaller ongoing updates since 2015. And everything was about being more mobile friendly, about having a secure site. So in other words, HTTPS, not just HTTP. So that's also called SSL. And that's pretty much required now for Google to rank you favorably. But here's the thing. I wanted to go through this. Thank you for bearing with me on this. I just wanted to highlight the fact that all of these things have one thing in common. And the upshot of all of this is that good content wins. It's not just about the keywords. It's about semantic search. It's about serving people. It's about understanding where people are, in other words, on mobile devices. It's really about trying to serve the user in the best possible way. And that's what Google wants to see from you. And hey, guess what? That's good practice anyway. That's good content strategy. That's what we want to be doing as small business owners anyway. And here's the thing about this. That means that we don't really have to pay attention to any of these algorithm updates, right? Because every single one of them since 2011 has been focused on this same thing, delivering good content. If you can do that, if you can deliver good, useful, relevant content that educates, entertains, inspires, enlightens, you win. SEO is really that simple. So focus on that and that alone. And yes, we need to know about how to set this up so that Google understands the page and that it will work with semantic search and everything's where it should be. We're going to get into all of that in future segments. However, it's all about the good content. It's good news, right? It's good news for you and me. All right, so I think I'll stop there. And in the next segment, I want to get into some of these factors and how they work on page for you when you're setting up your own site and your own blog and your own content for SEO. Now, I do a much, much deeper dive in an online course that I'm producing about SEO that really gets into, a lot of these different ranking factors. Google has over 200 factors. Try to get into some of the key highlights and the things that are most important for you to focus on. I'll look at Google Analytics, Google Search Console, how to set all that stuff up, do some, screen share walkthroughs, that type of thing. Video tutorials, templates, checklists, all of that. And you can sign up to be notified when that's ready at controlmousemedia.com/SEO-basics. And I'd be happy to have you on my list. I'll email you if you want. You get to choose what you want to receive. Get the podcast, get my blog. You get to choose your frequency on my list. I'd be happy to have you. All right, thanks for listening. And, I'll see you on the next episode.